The Michigan Wolverines kicked themselves in the nuts for many years following their last national championship in 1997, whether it was the inability to report simple things as workout logs to the NCAA and having the university realize that the program knowingly violated those codes and it led to the termination of a head coach a couple of years later, whether it was the inability to beat Ohio State in the game, causing them to miss out on the national championship conversation year after year, despite all the talent that they have, whether it was the inability to win a big game on the road, whether it was against Penn State or Michigan State, well, which ended their playoff hopes a lot earlier before the game in many years, or whether it was the lack of athleticism, whether it was the lack of youth, whether it was the lack of speed, whether it was the lack of mental toughness, whether it was dumb ways that the team lost games from a botched fumbled snap on the last play of the game, which turned a lead into a loss, a missed tackle at the end of a game, the inability to show up in a college football playoff game, the inability to take down a stunning underdog, a team that lost by 58 points the following week in a national championship game last year, their inability to win as a 7.5 point underdogs. And all of those things get carried over, and it mounted to a lot of pressure, but a vision needed to be changed, and all that was realized in 2023 with a season for the ages. The 2020 COVID shortened season led many in Michigan to believe that the Jim Harbaugh era was falling apart, whether it was the culture, whether it was the losing of winnable games, Michigan's status as a recruitment destination, whether his legacy was on the line, his job security was on the line. So Jim Harbaugh knew a change was needed, and he knew that change was needed. And the change was always needed because Michigan's pinned their season usually on how they did against Ohio State in the big game on the last Saturday of November or the Saturday after Thanksgiving, depending on how the season unfolded. And we finally saw what Michigan needed to do in 2021, which was to get younger, whether it was to get faster, get more physical, bring younger coaches in. But but in 2021, he was finally able to knock off Ohio State in the game. Michigan wound up winning winning the Big Ten championship game, get to the playoff for the first time. So, but those were no shows as well, and we saw that last year, a year that many thought that C.J. Stroud was going to cement his status as the Heisman, but Michigan had other ideas, winning on the road at the Shoe, winning by 22 points. They got to the playoff again last year, but they weren't able to get it done against TCU in the Fiesta Bowl in the college football playoff semifinal. And you can argue there was a lot of controversy surrounding that as well. But in 2023, Michigan faced adversity and controversy like they had never faced before. And Jim Harbaugh was suspended twice this season. Once for recruiting violations during the COVID-19 pandemic. The NCAA made specific rules saying that recruits couldn't come because of COVID-19 restrictions, and NCAA and the NCAA imposed them, and Jim Harbaugh violated those. So he was suspended the first 3 games of the season, but all those 3 games were against second division teams. So, but there was also suspended once for a sign stealing scandal, which there was no evidence of a sign stealing scandal ever happening, despite the Big Ten admitting that there was no evidence to support Jim Harbaugh leading a sign stealing scheme, and that was never the case. But those things toughened up the team. It tested their resolve, and the young, fast, physical team so that came into national prominence in 2021 grew more mature over these past 2 years. That they were more experienced, and they saw their mental fortitude be tested like it never had in their Michigan careers. And this year, they passed with flying colors. Michigan won their first national championship in 26 years last night, taking down Michigan's opponent Washington 34-13, and they were clearly the better team in all three phases. They ran for over 300 yards. Two of their running backs, Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, each had over 100 yards rushing, and each had 2 touchdowns. Donovan Edwards scored twice in the first quarter on runs of including the second one, a 46-yard touchdown run, which at the time was the longest run given up by Washington all season. Then Blake Corum had a 59-yard run on the next possession. And then in the fourth quarter, Blake Corum scored his his two touchdowns to give him 56 for his Michigan career, which is a school record. The offensive line made critical blocks and made the entire game plan methodical for Sharon Moore, the 37-year-old young and up-and-coming offensive coordinator who had to lead the team through their toughest stretch of the regular season, which included games against Penn State ranked and Ohio State ranked. All of them were dogfighting for a chance to represent the Big Ten East in the Big Ten championship game, and that methodology paid off, and that methodology was tough, physical, turnover-free football. After seeing their seasons end on crazy turnovers the previous 2 years, did not happen this time. J.J. McCarthy, speaking of turnovers, was not involved in this game. He looked sluggish at times. He was missing some throws, but he made 2 critical throws in this game that set up touchdowns. One in the first quarter and one in the fourth quarter, and they looked like NFL type throws. And I say NFL throws because J.J. McCarthy is subject to being drafted by an NFL team this upcoming spring in the draft. Defensively, they held Washington's rushing attack to just 46 yards on the ground and 2.3 yards per carry. They dominated the line of scrimmage all night, so exactly what they did to Alabama, and they never made Heisman runner-up Michael Penix Jr. comfortable all night while taking down his draft stock in the process. So this brings us now to Jim Harbaugh, one of the most talked about characters in college football over the last 9 years since Michigan brought him back to coach his alma mater. Big brand and name recognition, the Harbaughs, Jim Harbaugh, led the San Francisco 49ers to the NFC Championship game 3 years in a row, while his brother John has been the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, the third longest tenured coach in the NFL as of this week. And of course the two brothers met in the Super Bowl the one year Jim Harbaugh took the 49ers to the Super Bowl. You have the big brand, Michigan. You have one of the most powerhouse schools in the nation, the super large alumni network, one that draws in TV ratings with its athletic facilities and its a big network of research, and also with it, the second largest fan base in college football. He generated TV ratings wherever he went, and the change of vision that he had to bust the alternative reality that he had been comfortable living in for the first half decade as a head coach of Michigan, where he was constantly losing to Ohio State bigly. That burst into the alternative reality paid off. And listen, who knows what Jim Harbaugh's future is going to be like, and who knows when his next chapter will begin, as NFL teams have lined up the idea of luring in Jim Harbaugh from Michigan to coach in the NFL, given the internal conflicts between Jim Harbaugh and Michigan and Jim Harbaugh and the Big Ten. But there are a few teams involved, given the recent influx of teams following the NFL's Black Monday following the end of the regular season. But for Wolverines fans, one thing is clear. Last night's victory was the manifestation of what Jim Harbaugh promised upon his arrival to coach the University of Michigan Wolverines, which was to make Michigan the best team in the country, and they delivered a national championship, the one that they had been waiting for so many years.